The reason the Sig P365 is one of my favorite pistols is because of the trigger. After picking up my first P365, it quickly became the best shooting gun I've ever picked up. From the factory, it comes with a nice flat blade that doesn't include the ever so popular trigger safety bar that you see on Glocks, Springfields, Smith & Wesson M&Ps, and a growing list of others. And I liked that. When I saw Tyrant CNC was making a first of its kind trigger for the P365 with a trigger safety bar, I was curious. They did reach out to me to see if I wanted to do a review on this trigger, and I was excited to try it out. I've got 200 rounds through my X macro running this trigger, so stick around and find out my thoughts. Tyrant CNC is introducing to the world a first of its kind trigger for the P365, and it's significantly better than the factory trigger in my opinion. The IntelliFire trigger is designed for all P365 pistols from smallest to largest. It's not made just for the macro. That just happens to be what I have, so that's what it went in. And Tyrant says it will work with aftermarket grip modules. This trigger is incredibly comfortable under your finger, and you really feel the difference over the OEM trigger while you're shooting it. The design of this trigger has definitely had a lot of thought put into it, and I feel like my finger sits naturally right in the sweet spot. They also designed this to get the closest they could to the wall without interfering with the safety of the firearm or needing to modify your internals. Overall, Tyrant CNC says this trigger reduces pre-travel take-up, the creep, by 30%, and if you do a lot of dry fire or live fire training, I honestly think you'd notice a difference. It's not adjustable, but I really don't think it needs to be either. When you start your trigger press, the pre-travel before you get to the wall is relatively short, and by the time you hit the wall, the trigger is nearly at a 90-degree angle. Now, I don't know if it's the honeymoon phase you have with something new or different, but I've put a lot of time behind the P365 trigger, both curved and flat, in all P365 sizes, and this doesn't feel as clunky as the OEM trigger to me. Tyrant CNC also says this trigger reduces reset length by 15%, and I'd say it does feel a bit improved. And a shorter reset means faster follow-up shots, and if you train with your firearm often, it could help you with your overall accuracy at faster speeds as well. This hasn't seemed to reduce the feel of the trigger pull weight, but to be fair, Tyrant doesn't advertise that it will. Though while the design doesn't lighten the pull, it does make it easier, and that makes a difference. Pulling the trigger, it breaks right at 90 degrees. It's still OEM internals, and it's not going to give you that crisp Glock feel, but the functionality, the position of your finger, it all feels really good through the whole trigger press. The safety blade in this is pretty wide, and not only does that make it very comfortable, but there's none of that Glock bite you get with the thin Glock style safety blades. The width also makes it easier to disengage the safety blade, especially if you might not have the perfect trigger placement. Even with my finger off to the side, it still cleanly disengages and allows the trigger to function, but if you drop your firearm or it falls for whatever reason, the safety blade will certainly stop the trigger from any rearward motion, even if your internal safeties fail. Now, when I said this works, I mean, it really seems to actually work. I didn't have any situations where it needed to work for real safety reasons, but I have spent some time playing around with it at home to test it out. One thing I noticed is when the trigger is pushed all the way back and the rear of the safety blade is fully engaged with the frame, I can place a great amount of pressure with my finger and it's not moving, it's not slipping, so from a does it work standpoint, I'd say it functions as designed for sure. The trigger shoe is made of steel. It is machined from high-grade 12L14 stainless steel. Tyrant CNC says this is great for durability and longevity, so this trigger should be able to put up with whatever you can toss at it, and it should last you a long time. The safety blade is 6061 aluminum, which has a well-established reputation of being durable. It works well too. Right out of the package, it feels really smooth and it tucks away nice and flat when fully compressed. The trigger shoe and the safety blade are held together with 2 custom-made stainless steel screws. After 200 rounds on the range and a good many dry fire pulls, I haven't noticed them backing out or getting loose in any way. And these are made in the USA, right in Chicago, Illinois, or the home of the best hot dog in the world. And if you enjoy a good Chicago dog, or even if you enjoyed this video, do me a solid and hit the subscribe button so we can keep growing this channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss out. I do want to point out the finish. The finish is really nice on it. I don't like shiny, and this isn't shiny or glossy, if you will, but the color itself is vibrant, and Tyrant offers a few different color options so you can choose what you think pops or go for whatever matches that build you're working on. Looking at you, Gamage. If I had a recommendation, it would be texturing the face of the safety blade. It is good and it is wide, but it's also smooth. That being said, I don't have any issues with my finger feeling like it was slipping off, regardless of how fast I fired or how much I was moving. And I shot this standing still, on the move, working transitions, and doing reloads. But if you ask me what's something we could do to make it 10% better, I'd say a nice etching on the face of the trigger blade, but that's just my opinion, and I don't think it's something that's necessary for it to function properly or reliably. I do really appreciate the overall look of the trigger. The angles are nice, the finish is good, and the lines and cutouts go great with their other products, like this slide stop and takedown lever, or their mag well and mag extension. It really helps to bring the look together, which if you're doing a custom build, that might be important to you. Now for my opinion on safeties. Whether it's trigger safeties or manual safeties, I don't believe that you need them on striker-fired pistols. Modern striker-fired pistols have come a long way, and the internal safety mechanisms are incredibly useful and trustworthy. But if you want extra something to make you feel more comfortable and confident, then you'll really appreciate this. It feels like it engages well. I've never had any hangups under live fire that prevented me from shooting the pistol or anything that stopped the pistol from functioning properly. I think I'm going to keep it on here. After 200 hassle-free rounds, I'm pretty confident it's going to work. Plus, I just like it more than the OEM trigger, and that's the real driving force to my decision. I wish I could help you feel how comfortable it is, but the only way you can do that is by getting your hands on one, and that's your problem to figure out. Overall, it seems really solid, and I think there's going to be a lot of people happy to get their hands on this. The trigger itself is solid, and I can't really notice any sloppiness or side-to-side play. The tolerances for this seem spot on. The finish is nice, and there's colors you can choose from to make it as custom as you can for any look you're going for. It has a steel trigger shoe and aluminum safety blade, none of that polymer stuff to wear out over time, and it goes a long way in helping the trigger feel as nice as it does. I think an etching would be cool on the trigger safety blade, but that's just my opinion, and I'm just some guy on the internet, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you been waiting for this style of trigger to come out for the P365? Are you going to pick one of these up? Do you believe it's necessary, or is the P365 just fine as it is? I'll do my best to get back to everyone because I really enjoy the engagement. Thanks for stopping by. I'll catch you guys on the next one.